Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Your Soul Revolution. I'm so excited to share our guest today. Dr. Divya is a visionary and vitality advisor for CEOs, business visionaries, and health professionals. She synthesizes the wisdom of medical astrology, human design, and nervous system energetics to help her clients prevent burnout and empower them to rise to their true potential by focusing on their ability to rebirth and transform in each moment by attuning to the seasons of life. She's a former dentist, PhD health promotion researcher who has 15 years experience in the healthcare industry. She is now on a mission to find synergy and unify the two worlds of science and spirituality. She believes in embodied wisdom over fabricated awareness and dreams of a world where everyone freely embodies the essence of their soul's truth and liberates their bodies from dis-ease. I mean, that's a world I can get behind. I want the same thing. So welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
I have like 100 questions. I don't even know where to start. But let's start. I'm curious because I know you have a background in healthcare, and I know from the little I know about your story that you've also done like a lot of different part-time jobs. So how did you first find I don't know if it was human design or medical astrology first, like what led you to this path? What led you in your life to find these things and create what you've created now?
Mm, Gosh, where do I even begin? Um, I guess the turning point in my life was, I had all the university degrees and the accolades, and I had achieved the so-called success metrics of the society. Um, and I was still not fulfilled in my heart. Something was missing. I was still not being 100% recognized for who I was. Like I would get, a great job, like good work, and it just wasn't enough. Like it wasn't like satiating my heart. And I started experiencing these really bad episodes, health crisis, I would say. But it started happening like like first it was like a little movie trailer, and then it was like a full blown 3 hour, and plus years of like health crises, which just like made me fall to the ground in a way, and I realized something is absolutely like wrong here. Like I'm probably need to get to the root of it. Like I was trying to treat it like in the conventional way as much as possible and just use the band-aid treatments that were available. And I guess that's when there was this intersection happening. I remember very clearly. I was at university. I was doing my PhD then, and I had this moment where my chest was rising up, and I basically was having a panic attack and had no clue that it was a panic attack. And I was pretty convinced that it was like a heart attack or something. And we ended up in the hospital still. And then I woke up to realize that it was a panic attack. And I started searching for all these questions after this. And I'm like, how can something like this happen to me? I'm like the most positive person, but I was like toxic positive person, like just trying to like use positivity to like, kind of like submerge your emotions in a way. And I found human design. Actually, I found astrology, and I had an astrology reading, and then I found human design as well. But I was so convinced that human design was like a fake system, like another personality test. And I was like, this thing is wrong because I was so convinced I was a generator. And when it said I was a projector, um, I think the innermost part of my being was like, yes, like she finally found the answer. But like every other part of me that was conditioned was like, this is no, this is wrong. And it took me almost like 6 months to like kind of go back and forth with it. to come back because I was just really losing it with my health. Like I was almost like bedridden. I had like this acute illness, which changed into like a chronic condition, and we just didn't know what was causing the blood loss and like the fatigue and everything. It was just overwhelming. It was basically my sacral completely burnt out. And I was actually beyond burnt out. And which I all found out after realizing I was a projector. And I'm like, oh my God, I've been like trying to climb another ladder instead of like who I innately was. And I guess that was like the turning point. I found human design first, and then like astrology. Along with that astrology, it was so affirming. And then I found medical astrology, which was a bit of a trick, right? So it was like, I don't want to talk about like the medical side of things now. Like, can we keep spirituality, spirituality, and medical, medical? But this is where I guess like my soul was wanting to explore something deeper to bridge the two worlds together. And I just fell in love with this system. It almost felt like I looked at that system and I started studying, and it's like, I've probably done this in many lifetimes. It's like, I just knew. Like, I just could remember when I look at a chart, I can just like put the story together. That's always like so affirming for people. So I just don't know how it happens, but yeah, so far that's been the story of how these systems almost like brought me back to my life.
Mm.
And I'm just grateful to be alive in a way because I didn't know back then like how to articulate what was going on with me and who I was, or like to even stand up for myself or like take my power back in situations where I was being, I guess, like misled and taken granted for. So yeah, that's a bit of a story, and like using all the nervous system support to like integrate everything, right? Like it's just not just about like knowing the information from these systems, but nervous system is like the bigger umbrella that I kind of lean back on, like the somatics of all of it, which was what gave me permission to like rewire the patterns. Yeah. So that's how I got here, and it solidified my purpose. And there are still days I question it, but every single time I offer a client session, almost every single client of mine like leaves the room with like tears, and I'm also like crying like after that, just because it's such deep work that just cannot be explained with words. And yeah, it's just like a mutual feeling that's just shared in those sessions, and there's absolutely nothing more fulfilling than that for me right now. So yeah, that's a little bit about my journey.
That's amazing. I can definitely relate. I think so. A couple years ago, actually almost 5 years ago now, my body like broke out in complete psoriasis. Had never happened before, didn't know. And so I can imagine and relate to what it feels like to get answers on why, like what's happening in your body. And I totally believe it's always guiding us, but we're often left like looking for answers that we don't get from outside of us if we don't know where to go. So that's why when I found you and you were talking about medical astrology, I was like, yes. I tried to even like look a little bit up about it, but there's not that much out there to Google. Like I know you can take courses and stuff, but so for the listeners who are like, what is medical astrology? I've never heard of this. Like, can you explain a little bit about it and how you work with it and use it with your clients?
Yeah, definitely. So medical astrology is a branch of astrology. There's like different branches of astrology, and which is all connected to like the mind, body, and soul. So astrology in itself is like the language of the soul, and we get to look at it through the different areas of life. So we have like 12 houses and 12 signs, and all the planets that govern it as well. So there's a story that is like each of the pie slices tell us, and each of these pie slices also represent certain body zones in our body, right? So it's like they govern certain organ systems and functions, and physiological functions as well. So it's like when they're all tied together, they tell a story. And depending on the position of like the planets and the aspects that they make, your sun, moon, and rising sign, like all of those contribute to your overall vitality, your internal emotional health, as well as like your like what helps you, you know, attune to an environment and stay healthy in that environment as well. So that's why medical astrology really blends in well with like modalities that are also so deeply connected to like the body systems like somatics, or nervous system work, or anything to do with like subconscious reprogramming, and all of those mind body techniques really do well with medical astrology. And actually medical astrology has been around for like centuries. You know, it was back in the day. There's a beautiful Hippocrates quote which says that physicians who don't know astrology are basically not physicians, something like that. You know, and then back in the day they had to do an astrology subject in order to be qualified as physicians. And I just found that like so fascinating. And I was like, what? And why is that like not a rule right now? Because when I went to like dental school, or when I went to do like my PhD as well, like you are very confined to the subject matter. Like you are very confined to those walls and what they teach you. We don't even learn about like, I think we have like a little bit about like nutrition, and but we don't even learn about like what happens in a man's body, what happens in a woman's body, how is that connected to like the whole, right? Like we we were kind of like taught at, it's like almost like, you know, we're the only people on earth, and like we only people in the planet, and like in earth school like this is what you learn, and that's like more than enough, right? So like you're so disconnected from the rest of the world. But I think that is changing now because, you know, there's so many different types of diseases that have like stemmed up, and everyone is marching towards finding their highest, most optimal health. And medical astrology is intuitive medicine, you know, so it's not like, it is for educational purposes, and it's so much so connected to like the energetics of it. But this doesn't disregard like acute medicine at all. Like we still need that. We still need modern medicine, but we need the blend of the other side of the picture for us to, you know, get to the root of things and to just see from like a psychological perspective why certain things may be happening, and why is it that, you know, people are not able to like 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 have that health and vitality to be living in their purpose and have all the abundance that they want, right? Like it's so, yeah, so I love that it sees a very nuanced way to it, to the body, which was kind of like hidden to the world for many, many years. And now it's like resurfacing, like human design is resurfacing, and, you know, it kind of became popular during COVID. And now I feel like medical astrology is resurfacing. And as like the systems and organizations are like falling apart, we are like searching for more roots and more different ways in which we can synthesize the language of this miraculous technology that we get to call our body.
That's amazing. I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah. God, can you imagine if like doctors did have that knowledge and what it would mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because half the thing you can, you know, when you go to like a consult, like even if it's like a general practitioner consult, half your disease and half your problems will go away if the doctor actually fully, like, you know, was present with you and looked at everything from like a holistic perspective. Because most of the people don't, the reason why someone comes for a coaching session, or that the coaching industry is so popular right now, is because people are getting an opportunity to get heard, right? Like
Yeah.
someone's hearing their story, someone is actually hearing all of their ups and downs that they're going through with their body. Like someone's able to hold space for them and just see them in their truth. Um, and these days, doctors don't have that time. Like it's not their mistake, but it's like they're inundated with requests. They are either underpaid and overworked and burnt out, right? So people are also like very clueless. You know, I still work in the healthcare industry, so even when I talk to patients now, it's like, yeah, like, I got like so much out of talking to you for the past 45 minutes than what I got from like the doctor. Like, it's just so, because you are holding space for them, and that holding space capacity has been lost in a
Yeah.
way, amongst all the noise of the intellectual jargon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think like, I mean, society just teaches us to like go fast, like go faster, like hustle. And it's like, I was thinking about this the other day with like human design. And I was like, if you had like dogs and cats in your household and you were raising the cat to be a dog and you wondered why it wasn't keeping up, like why it did things differently, right? Like you would be like, oh, okay, they aren't set up that way, right? But like we don't treat ourselves the same way. And it's like we all have a certain way of using our energy in the world, a certain way of listening to what our body is guiding us to and directing us with. And we aren't taught to learn that about ourselves. And so it's like we're trying to be a different animal or trying to be a different thing. Um, and like, of course, it isn't going well. Of course, we get burnt out. Of course, like dis-ease like shows up in our body because we're treating ourselves as something that we're not and trying to live in a way that isn't unique to us.
Yeah, it's a vicious cycle, and it's just like, and the analogy is like so good, because animals are like such a beautiful example of like being in deep co-creation and relationship with nature, right? So they know who they are, they know how their body works, they know what kind of food they can eat. Like, they come prepared, they have like that consciousness embedded in them. It's we who need to figure out who we are, right? So, and that's why like pets are actually, they rule like our sixth house of health in medical astrology. Isn't that
Mm.
interesting? So, like, even the pets are here to kind of teach us something about our body and our health and our daily routines. Like, they have set routines, if you see, right? They eat their food, they need to go for their walk, like, they're affectionate, like, they have like their routines. Like, we can learn so much from them about like being in the rhythm and being in ritual to their body, like, cleaning themselves, whatever it is, right? Like, we can learn so much from that. And I think that's like fascinating that, us humans, when we get so caught up in trying to chase this idea of us instead of like who we innately are, and we're working almost like against the current instead of like with it, and then we're wondering, why is it not working me? Why is this manifestation technique not working? Why am I not at the same place like everyone else? Like, what am I doing? So even what I've noticed is with my clients, like even with people who are super successful, right? Like, they reach that pinnacle of success, they are not happy. They're literally like, I have everything, but I am so broken. And I think that's just like, yeah, that's just so sad. One,
Mm.
and it's exhausting, right? So like, it takes so much time to rework that relationship and reframe with their body, and that starts with obviously one day at a time. But yeah, like, I guess the shift we're going towards, that like everybody is going to start prioritizing their individual essence and what they bring to the table. So if they are not okay, nobody's going to be okay, you know. So I'm here for that. Like, this is great, you know.
I love that about animals in the sixth house. We got a puppy a couple of years ago and I like watch her all the time because it's like we all intuitively know what our bodies need, but like we're constantly conditioned by society, whereas like dogs obviously aren't like being told to
Yeah,
act differently or do differently, and so they do what
they
they
don't have
need.
social media. They don't have social media. They don't have friends. They don't have to like make Instagram reels. I mean, well, they are on Instagram, and we like that. you know, like, they're like, they have their own routine. And I think that's hilarious. Yeah.
But even when I read about, like dogs and animals, how they like shake off trauma, like when something happens, they just shake and literally release it. And I'm like since that, I'm just like, it fascinates me. So the fact that you just said that, I'm like, oh yeah, no wonder I like love love animals.
Yeah, I think like people with like specific placement like really like animals can be like deeply healing for them, right? Like
Mm,
so, anyone with like my mom has Chiron in her sixth house, and she is afraid of pets. And
mm,
having a Chiron placement in a sixth house is like previous wounding from probably having
mm.
pets, right? Like in another lifetime, she might have lost a dear one, or
Yeah.
something must have like hurt her, or animal must have hurt her where she has that fear right now, and she innately feels like that love as well towards it. But for some people, it can be very deeply healing, right? So, like having like a moon in your sixth house, it's like that pet can bring. Oh, you have a moon. I love that. That pet can bring such emotional healing for you, you know?
Uh, no wonder. Like she makes my day every when I like need something. I'm like, I'm just gonna go downstairs and see Layla because she'll turn
Oh,
this around.
so sweet. Wow, like you have like your personal, and they're such good, great co-regulators. In human design, they do say that most dogs are like reflectors. They
Mm,
have like reflector energy. So they kind of like reflect like where you are at, what you need, and they invite you to like kind of do that like as well. Like if you need to move and move your body, they're like okay, jumping and like want to play with you and like to move that energy as well, or rest in the sense to like
mm.
slow down and to like just sleep and take it easy and horizontal. So yeah, it's so fascinating. Like I do want to get a pet, and I'm like slowly building my capacity in my nervous system. Like I do live with one, but he's not mine. But eventually in the future, they'll be on.
It is, yeah, it's a lot like having a kid, especially puppies. But yeah, I'll never forget, we're getting off tangent to pets, but I'll just say this last thing. Like a couple years ago when I was like having a hard time with things, I remember like I was home alone and I went into like our sitting room onto the couch and I was like sobbing. It just came out. I needed a release. And our dog, my partner's older dog, literally ran into the room, like came, like put his paws up on my lap and like was literally trying to comfort me. And I was like, oh, like I was like, okay, I'm gonna be okay.
Oh, that's just so special. Like they know, they're so
Yeah.
intuitive. They can sense like much before, and like the pet that I have at home, he's a golden doodle as well, Murphy. Like the moment I walk out of the room, and if I've come out of like a meeting, and if it was hectic, and I have a bit of those that like almost like grumpy energy, he can feel that like instantly. It's like he'll just like walk away, or like just try to like give me space to like process it, and then he'll give me the stare as well, and I'm like, oh my god, he knows. Like he sees through my soul.
Okay. So, back to medical astrology.
Yeah.
What do you see? I'm so curious, like the clients you see come to you that you do medical astrology readings with, like, are most of them experiencing dis-ease? Are they just, like you said, got to a certain point and they're still unhappy? Like, what are some of the things you help people heal and find? Like you said, it brings you
Mhm.
to tears, finding that alignment, finding that true home within.
Yeah. I actually see like a variety of clients. So, most of my clients are like business leaders, or like they lead like a huge team. So they have a lot of people under them. So it's almost like when they are going through their health crisis in silence, right? So it's like,
Mm,
or they have like a huge following, something like that, right? It's like they can't tell a lot of people because they feel like their opportunities will go away, or people will judge them, or they just or they'll be taken advantage of, right?
mm,
So um and it, and I'm like, what? Wow, like we've come to that point where we just can't even allow our body the space to heal,
mm,
right? Like especially if it's going through a health issue. And I think that's like a common theme with most of them. But like if I have to look at like one or two specific lines, like they would have had like either like an organ removal, like something like very drastic happened, or like an accident or something, or like really bad like traumatic patterns, which has like like rewired the way in which like their body functions, and like a lot of like gut brain axis issues, vagus nerve, vagal tone completely off. So we get to like look at all of that. So I
Mm.
usually approach it from like their sun sign, their moon sign, and their rising sign. And then I try to see like, okay, what can I illuminate to them that's going to help them take their power back, right? And it's almost like instant. Like the moment I tell them, and I'm like, okay, say for example, you're like sun in Gemini, and this person would have had like for sure they would have had like some asthma, like really bad bronchitis growing up, or things like that. Lots of grief and lots of lessons around grief as well, like stored emotion in that part of the body. And I'll tell them, and I'm like, for you, your environment is really important. You are like an emotional sponge. More like when I look at the human design, immediately you can see they'll have like an undefined emotional center as well. And then I'm like correlating to that, right? So it's like you need to be very mindful of the environments that you like place yourself in, and also really tending to your nervous system, because so much of like your vitality depends on the things that you're processing in your mind and how you make yourself feel about your thoughts, right? So if those are like not good thoughts, that is going to like your mind over, like if you're going to let your mind over your body, then it is going to like take over, and you are going to like say you are going to like almost like call in that health issue, even if it is not in your field. So yeah, so like so much around that, right? Like so we look at like some people come with like deep fears of like picking up something from the environment and getting like horribly sick. And when you most probably look at them, they also have like an undefined spleen, and like they catch up on all of these fears. And then I'm looking at their chart to see like what's bringing up all of these fears. And like it might be like Mars might be having like a certain aspect, or like their moon might be in a certain aspect, in Scorpio or something. But like mostly people with like Scorpio placements like don't fear death, but if they have a like challenging aspect to it, like they sometimes kind of have this fear as well come up around like death. And I think that's like such a natural process of us being a human as well, right? So we're going to be born, we're going to live our life, but so many of us are not ready for that end of life. Like, sorry, this is my eighth house Scorpio. Still, I'm like having a chuckle about it, but I think I have like reframed my relationship to that like so much because of what I'd gone through.
Mm.
And I also have like a sixth house health Scorpio house, so it's like death is for me is like, yeah, it is inevitable. It is going to happen to all of
Mm.
us, so we have to kind of make peace with that as well. So it's like I wouldn't talk about that specifically in that session, but it's like also helping them honor like the seasons. So we go through like, um, what are your particular seasons of bloom, right? Like, where are you going to feel like more energy, vitality? What are the things
Mm.
that you can do that you can like bring your lusciousness and vitality back? Where are like your seasons of rest in your chart? And like, what can you do in those seasons as well? It's not just about like lying on your bed and falling asleep, but so much more that you can do attuning to those particular seasons. And the transformation that they get out of it, it's phenomenal, right? Like they come in with this like deep sadness about their health,
Mm.
and then they get all of this information, and then cellular frequency knowledge landing on them. And I get messages even months later, like 6 months down the lane as well. I would like get messages from them, like how like their cells are like communicating them to create something new, and they themselves have awakened something miraculous within their bodies. It's like, oh, it's okay if I'm having a health hiccup, it's just my body communicating to me that I needed to slow down. I've given away my power to something, or I've given away too much, and it's just my body calling me back to myself. They've realized that potential, and then they bounce back and they go. It just happens, right? Like they're just quantum leaping from one thing after another, and like the biggest gift that they mostly get is like the capacity to make decisions as themselves.
Mm.
And I think there's like nothing more sexier than that to me, because that's like, wow, like you're just like in your element, like that's
Mhm.
what we call it. And and yeah, so those things really like move me, like, for them to go through that transition of like almost hating their body to just being like lovesick in their body. Like it's just like complete opposite. And for them to go through those emotions and those waves is like deeply empowering. Yeah.
I love that. Like I was just saying that the other day too. It never gets old. You almost see like a light switch come on in the client, and like it's like, oh, turn to my power back on. And it's like, it never gets old. I'm like, yes, like
Yeah.
let's all turn ourselves on. And it's um, we forget like I always say, like if we are the problem, then we are always the solution, and like that
Yeah.
always gives us our power back. And then
Yeah.
if we look at it through that lens, like we always are in the driver's seat. We always get to come back to ourselves and say, okay, what is my body trying to tell me right now, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, it's just so powerful to be able to take that power back as well, because I think there's so many things that can happen in the world and like systems that can like take that power away from us. But if we are not in that sovereign relationship with our body and with our soul, then we're gonna get easily like taken for a ride. And it's like we almost give that power away to other people to make decisions about our body, but it's we who live in it, and no one better than us than that can know about it. But if we are so bombarded with um like conditioning and like fears and like patterns, it's not about like, oh my god, I have so much work to do. It's just about realizing that this has been my journey so far, and it's going to take a little bit amount of courage and effort for me to become aware of these patterns when they show up. It's easier said than done, but it is an art, it is a practice, and we all get that in one way or the other you know
I love seeing that. I heard somewhere on a podcast, I think it was, oh, I can't remember where. And she was talking about like us, like in our society, especially like we're conditioned to believe and we think that like the body is like this obstacle to overcome as opposed to like the thing to listen to. And it's like such, I heard her say that and I was like, oh my God, yes. Like, because it is true. Like, we think it's working against us, especially when something shows up and we don't know why it's happening and we don't get the answers. And we're like in this place where we just feel lost from ourselves. And it's that like disconnection. And when we can reconnect that, like you do through your work, it's just, it's like so beautiful.
Yeah, it is. Indeed, it's so beautiful. And, I've been there, and I think we all have been there. It's like, when you go through that health issue, like, even just taking an example of menstrual cycles, right? Like those are the things that I used to like really go through. Like I would have like prolonged menstrual bleeding for like months and months and months, to the point where I lost like all my blood almost. Um, and it yeah, it was like I have no control. I can't close the door. You know what I mean? It's
Mm,
my body's got it. Like no matter how much I took like medications or like herbs or whatever, it's it's my body's way. It's my body's my body is the authority. It gets to make the decision,
mm,
right? Like I can never just go physically go there and like put a thing. Yeah, okay, I can, like all the doctors said I need to get rid of the organ to solve the issue, but I was like, no, no, I am going to figure out, like, I am going to get to the root of it. And that's when, I started like everywhere, like nervous system work. Like it was like almost my body, that time came in and I realized who I was and I realized the work that I needed to do. And then when I started doing the work, my body was like, let's bring it on. Like everything. And I was like, one after the other, I was having like all these health issues, and I'm like, what is going on? And it was during my Saturn return as well, so I was like, Jesus, the biggest roller coaster ride. So I was like yeah, Saturn taught me like how important it is, like, to honor yourself and to, like, you're in it for the long run. It's not just YOLO, like, it's like this is like your soul's evolution. And the journey of like understanding my body from that perspective is what gave me my power back as well.
Mm.
And to realize that my body is like the most powerful thing that my soul is housed in. So I better be in good terms with it because, like my mind can tell all these stories, but if this communication, if this deal is not good, like all the doors will open. So, and we don't want that.
Yeah, I think
So
it's amazing too to see, like, I truly believe like the most painful and hardest times in our lives always like remind us of our own medicine, and we get to like relearn that, and then that's what we're here to share with the world. And it's so amazing, I think, like all the friends, people, clients I've come across, like watching them own those unique pains and stories that they go through and where it then leads them in their life. Like if we hadn't gone through these things, like you could still be like a dentist. You know what I mean? Like it takes us on a path that we're meant to be on, and all we have to do is like listen and say yes and follow it, and the
yeah,
magic unfolds.
yeah, yeah. No, I actually was wondering about this like last week. I'm like, if I hadn't had that panic attack, and if I hadn't, if I'd taken this completely different path and I probably taken a job like somewhere else, like what would have happened, right? Like I feel like somewhere or the other, like Saturn would have brought me to my knees. Like I guess that was unavoidable because I was going through my Saturn return during COVID, so it
Oh,
was
yeah.
right when the world was like shutting down. I I was like, yippee! Like, I was so excited as a projector, like work from home and all of that. And I think I had like 3 months of like joy, and then I was dying basically for the rest of the time. Not with COVID, but with like something else, So which was like, yeah, such an interesting journey. So but I guess I wouldn't have it any other way. Like there was deep regret at the start of it. That's because I felt like all of those years of doing not being on the right path was wasted.
Mm,
But no, now it's like now I've realized that all of those parts of me is an essential part of my experiential wisdom that I get to share with others. And there are so many different people that relate to all those different parts, right? So it's all one beautiful medicine.
yeah. It's so crazy. I feel like everything I see and hear lately all comes together. Like I was listening to Jenna Zoe's podcast this week, and she was talking about someone had asked her, "Is there such a thing as bad timing?" And she was basically like saying, "No, like you either move forward from something or you learn a lesson and embody something that you needed to hear." But she's basically like, all you need to do is be on the platform, right? And you can get on the train, and you may miss the first train and you may miss the first five trains, but like eventually
Yeah,
you'll get the universe will keep sending trains to keep you on your path. And all of it's, like human design, like medical astrology, like astrology teaches us all of it's divinely perfect for us. And like
yeah,
all of our chart was given to us, like all of our gifts were given to us, like it's all leading us to exactly where we're meant to be. And I think it's like it is hard, even when you like come back into yourself and learn these things, you're like, oh, did I waste all this time in my life? Like it took me so long to get here. And it's like, none of that's useful to go down that path. Like we're here now, like we're
yeah.
always where we're meant to be.
Yeah, and it's like time. It's about time we actually take that ride wholeheartedly, right? Like so many of us are like still resisting it in a way. It's like, oh, what's the point? Like, I need to like it's for me, but like every single one of us, when we take that step towards liberating ourselves in whatever shape or form, we are contributing to the collective liberation as well. And we are equally contributing to like the earth's liberation, right? Like it's
Mm.
like she's also reprogramming and evolving. And her evolution is so deeply connected to the rest of the universe. So it's like the moment we it's the individual era that we're stepping into is not disconnection from the interdependence with the the consciousness that we're a part of. It's about co-creating with it while still honoring who we are as an
Mm,
individual, which is, and then the sooner people realize that as a gift, the greater benefits that they're going to see, right? And I think that's like being like such a testament in my world as well. It's like the moment that I was like so deeply grateful for my existence. It's like I literally like quantum leap. Like just in the last month, my whole life is like everything that I was waiting for like so many years just happened in the span of 2 weeks. And I was actually telling like the beautiful Amy today, and I was telling her, I'm like, I'm actually living in a season of my answered prayer.
mm,
And it's taken my body like at least 2.5 weeks or 3 weeks for me to like integrate like everything that I prayed for happened. Now what? Like the mind is already on to the next thing, but
yeah.
I'm like still like integrating like everything, right? So I think we forget to do that with our bodies. Like we forget to give ourselves the integration time. We're like, oh, let's just like dust it off onto the next. It's like, where are we running? Right? Like it's so important that we stop and take that time to introspect and to just really try to understand the different ways in which our body is communicating to us, the different ways
Mm,
in which our soul is communicating to us. And whatever profession you are in, you want to be able to like, connect it to like your legacy, like your soul legacy channel, and connect that to the collective legacy as well, because then becomes art,
mm.
right? Like you are literally creating art. Yeah.
Oh my God, I love that. Yeah. I mean, Leo season's a pretty good time to celebrate your accomplishments.
Yes.
I also was
Go Leo.
laughing. I also was laughing. I know we're not fully in Virgo season yet, but like Venus moved into Virgo, and I'm like, it's kind of appropriate that we rescheduled this to talk about health and all the
We have to,
things. Like,
yeah. All like it's like I was thinking about it today, and I'm like, oh my god, it's like Venus Day today, and it's like Venus is in Virgo, and we're talking about all things health and like blending in like the indulgence and the Venusian theme. Like this is perfect. Like yeah, always in divine. Yeah.
amazing.
Mm.
So, talk a little bit about how you weave, like, you talked a little bit about medical astrology and a little bit about human design, but like, can you share a little bit how you like weave those together with sessions? And I know like you have offerings teaching people about
Yeah.
Saturn and their Venus and looking at that both through the lens of astrology and human design. So, share a little bit more about that and how you're putting space and holding space to teach people and how you do that.
Yeah. So, with my teaching, like this is something that this classes that I started this year, like I did predominantly do like one-to-one signature client sessions like over the last year. And I think I had like one mastermind, like a mini mind sort of an experience in nervous system one. But this year I felt really called to like step more into like my teacher role. And I do teach at universities, and I did do that. And then I also like teach a little bit in my current job as well in education. So it's like teaching comes like very naturally to me. So I was like, how can I, whatever I've learned through my client work, how can I incorporate that into like concise it and just like share it with the world? Because it does take like a lot to like bring all the pieces together and hoping everyone receives exactly what they're supposed to receive. But yeah, like the way I bring it together is obviously the medical astrology gives me access to like the person's body template and helps me understand like the core patterns that could have been embedded into their nervous system and how energy flows in their body. And then from a human design perspective, I'm really able to like understand their energy type, their profile, and also like look at a little bit of their variables. It's like how they digest food and how their brain
Mm,
functions, and how their mind is, and like really look at their not self centers to see like what kind of patterns that they can get stuck in repetitively, right? So I create like this unique map for them, and I give them a calendar as well. But it's about like just to have it in the back end, right? It's like, it's not that. It's like if something is happening, like you can look at the calendar, but you don't have to like be so strict about it, because
Mm,
the ultimate goal is to like, follow your strategy and authority and to experiment with that, because no matter what, transits are always going to happen. The planets are always going to move. You're always going to have like something or the other happening in your chart, like astrologically, and we can never control that. But how you can always, the only thing that you can control per se is like how you respond to it, right? Like, and how you, um like, how, are you engaging to that particular situation through your authority, right? So in that way, it's almost like, I think Amy, Leah, like, explains this nicely. She said, if you engage as your authority, like even like the most gnarliest transits will not feel that heavy.
mm,
You can still like move through it. Like, yeah, you will probably go through it, but you'll have this sort of this certainty that this too shall pass, right? And I think that's very beautiful, and that's something that I learned from her through like the human design system. But so that's something that I incorporate into my sessions as well. And then what I help them do is, because they're all like creatives, leaders, and health professionals and CEOs, and in space of like constant needing to create and like to, almost like bring a source of inspiration to their community, I help them connect to their soul legacy channels and their soul
mm,
keystones, right? So I also studied like energy and soul medicine, and that is such an energy rich place, right? It's like this vortex, um, but if your body is not prepared to receive that vortex of energy, you'll not know what to do with it. But once you feel stabilized in your rhythms, and
mm,
you understand how the energy functions in your body and your design, then you can map these keystones, and then you can bring forth the most luscious creations to the world.
mm,
So one of the creations that I have my upcoming program, which is called Synergistic Living, is like a combination of all the three systems, and it's really about helping like health professionals and business leaders and coaches to understand the foundations of living and in co-creation with the cosmos, right? So like helping them create their own like astronaut anatomy, like their own embodiment practices, and like what is it that they need to like weave together in that, so that then they could create like these offerings that are going to contribute to the greater collective, right? So it's
mm.
like they know it is going to be well received, and it doesn't have to, like, I feel like this is where people can get like very caught up. It's like, oh, I need to do all of these things and like do all my market research. Like, yeah, market research is good. Understanding your client is great, but like, do you really like understand like their higher self and like their like what their soul is communicating to you? Probably not, right? Like, because we are energy beings,
Mm.
um and I think we right now are bombarded with like the different metrics, and metrics are important and for some people they're not, and for me, yeah, I'm innocence motivated. I'm like, I'm just, you know it's if it's something that I have to meet, I will meet, but I also don't care. It's like
Yeah.
it's so much more than who I am. So it's about connecting to those parts of ourselves that's like beyond, and allowing that to like flood our body and co-create with it,
Mm,
right? So it's like this offering for me like came to me eclipse season, like May, April last year, right? So it's like almost like 15, like close to 15 months.
yeah.
Um, and even before that, it was like there, but I just didn't know what it was. And it first came through like as just like this one aspect, and then it came through as like, no, it came through as like a money program. I'm like, who am I to teach you about money? I'm like, I am. What? No, like, like I was like, I can't teach about money. There's all these stories, and I have my son in 26 as well, and an undefined heart. But every time I would connect to it, it's like, no, you are here to teach about a different version of like money and wealth,
Mm,
and I just couldn't understand. And then it all made sense. It was like through the body. It's like, if you don't have health and vitality, no matter what you do, you cannot hold the
mm,
amount of health and money. That's why they always say the rich and the billionaires and the trillionaires in the world can have all the money, but if they don't have health, no amount of money can save them,
Mm,
right? So yeah, that's what synergistic living is all about. Like my intention is for, people for leaders and for coaches and all of us who are doing this work, and newbies and aspiring coaches to be so solid, like solidified in their foundations of health, that they have good health, and when money is in the hand of like good people, and people have good health, like that energy, when it gets amplified, like everyone can thrive in that, you know.
mm,
um so yeah, that's like my upcoming program. And my other offerings, like, is, the signature offering is called Vital Visionary, which is again like it's like a long-term container. And I'm like there, like I'm like the pocket projector for my clients. And it's just like they all become like my soul besties, and we're just like dancing through it together, which is amazing. It's like you feel so fulfilled to like get out of bed and to do that work. So yeah, so people come into my world through the readings, and then they take my classes, and now there's an opportunity for them to be a part of the program for a long-term
mm.
container. So
Congratulations. That's so
thank
exciting.
you.
So amazing. I assume that's one of the things you're celebrating.
Yes, yes, that's also one of the things I'm celebrating. Feels like I graduated. Like, it's out in the world. Okay, cool. Now we get to like lean back a little bit and just like, just usher in people and like just, yeah, take like the pressure off,
Yeah.
because, yeah, like launching something can be like, um, it can be a bit crunchy, for a lot of people, because you're trying to do something like so different, like from like the usual business world would do it like very, very differently. But
Mm,
when you're doing like energy energy work, and things connected to, like the ethereal realm, like launching can feel very different. So you have to play with what feels good for you and
mm,
learn what's good for you, but also not put pressure on yourself, because I guess like what I've learned from my experience so far is like, even with the clients of mine, they've been watching me like way before, right? Like these are not people who are like engaging with me in my comments or like DM me. They've been seeing my story and following me for a while quietly, and then they just like, okay, I know I have to work with you. And I'm like, where did
mm,
you even come from? Like, it's like, how long have you been following me for me again? Like, I'm like almost all of them, right?
yeah.
And it's just like, so they just know. So when you're working with those kind of things, it's like you just have to surrender, and you have
Mm,
to connect to, um, the evolutionary process of that soul, right? Like it's like, even when I'm sitting with this program, I'm like sitting with the fact that, this is about, like, this has come from such an energy rich, like part of my soul legacy that I'm going to leave. Like it's going to be a part of my living work.
mm,
And who are the souls that I am meant to contribute, that this work is now going to be a part of their evolution, right? That they are going to like take this in and do even more greater things. So when you look at it from that perspective, it expands you. Um, and yeah, and I've like just taken off all of that other pressure that I need to have all of the Excel sheets and do it in a certain way. I did all of that with my like dental school and like scientist days. I'm like, yeah, I'm just like winging it with like paper and just writing it down and just like scribbling in my notebook, like this is how it's gonna be.
If it isn't fun, I don't want it.
I really don't want it. Yeah.
No, but it really is true. And I remember my partner was reading a book a couple months ago, and he like shared this quote, and I'd heard similar before, but it was like most people have like hundreds of things they want. Like sick people only have one. And it is so true. Like you said, if we don't have our health, if we don't have our vitality, if we aren't alive, nothing else matters.
No, nothing else matters, right? Like if you are the diamond, right? Like you are the diamond, like, and it's like you are. It could be Leo season as well, but you are here to take to center stage in your life, right? Like I'm feeling like this lion energy coming through as we speak. But it's it's like if that's that core aspect of your body is not there to hold you and hold the incoming intuitive nudges and the creation energy and your soul's energy, there's no point, right? So it's
Mm,
like I feel that's what a lot of people are missing. It's like I was there too. I was like, I better post content every day. I better push myself. Like even if I've had a long day of work, I need to still write this piece of content because people will like that validation.
mm,
And then yeah, I think it was sometime last year. Like this was my first year of first 6 months, 6, 7, 8 months of business, and I was like, I don't have the energy. Like I'm not gonna bring like the old Divya into this new creation to do
mm,
that. So I just post when I have the splenic hit and I'm not worried about the numbers. And it's I think it's time and again it's been proven that you don't need to have like a huge following or an Instagram status to like do well in your business because even if it's 2,000 people that's following you, that's 2,000 people
mm,
that are taking in your like it's not just like numbers but they are individual souls who are taking in your work, right, in some shape or form. And so many of my friends follow me as well, but they don't like engage in my content, but like unconsciously they are like here and there in a conversation come up and I'm like, oh, so you did listen. you know so it's like they do pick it up like
yeah.
and you never know, right, like it's so I think that's why we should like never stop ourselves from like sharing our work or owning our creative power as well. um yeah, it's a beautiful blend.
And like you said, we're energetic beings first. So people can feel that. Like when you show up on Instagram and you're ready and you're like, I have something to share versus like that. I'm doing this because I feel like I have to. Like, even if people
Yeah,
don't realize it, they can feel that. And I think that, like, again, like we're talking about, we all get to be unique. We all have our own way. And so we don't all have to show up the same way. Like, we're not meant to. And
yeah.
yeah, like you said, people have been like following you in the background and now they're like, okay, let's go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it always happens. It's like so affirming that, like I'm meant to do this work, right? Because it's not that I've not questioned, like every other day, I still question because I'm like, am I meant to be, am I the person to do this work? And it's like, the doubt is always going to be there because your mind is constantly searching for results. We've been primed to like receive the likes and to receive the response. And I'm like, I am that person who takes ample amount of time to respond to people because I don't have that energy to
Mm,
respond, right? I've probably used up that energy during my day in my day job or whatever. And I'm like, now I'm like, no, sorry, no energy. And I think being very honest about that in our businesses, right? It's like, sorry, this is how I don't think you should even apologize for that. This is how I
mm,
function. This is how my energy functions. And this is what feels good for me, right? Like, this
mm,
is what feels rich for me. And like honoring that unique way in which it flows for you, that's like taking back your power. So that's what I tell even my clients if they're like team leaders and they have a big company and things like that. I'm like, show them, show your team members how you take your power back,
mm.
how you honor your energy. Yeah, it's okay to go on a long break because you deserve that.
Yeah.
And there's nothing like how can you leave like something when it's like in the middle of like you know getting bigger. I'm like, that's because I trust you. Like you put that trust onto the team members and you speak power into them so that you can go rest as well. Like so there's so many ways in which the way we like that's why I love these systems. Like earlier, I don't think I had the the words or the language to articulate
Mm,
um, things. I feel like astrology, human design, and medical astrology, like just gave me the language to speak like more clearly, and and I think that also twists a lot of people. They're like, how can you be like, how do you know yourself so well? Don't know. It just happens over a period of time, I guess. Yeah.
yeah. I remember it's funny you're talking about like how ask like giving yourself permission to do things your way, and especially if you're a leader, like showing others they can do the same thing. When I was in my corporate job a few years ago, I remember um, one of the like directors and one of my friends said to me like, if something ever happens to me, I'm calling Vicky first because she always responds like super quickly. And I remember thinking at the time it was a compliment, and I look back at it now and it makes me cringe because I'm like, people respond to me and they're like, sorry I didn't get back to you sooner. And I'm always like, please don't get back to me right away. Like, take the time you need. Like, I don't need an immediate response. Like, do it in the way that feels right. And I just think we need to give ourselves that permission and give like each of us that does it gives, even if we just give one other person that permission, like it all adds up, and we don't need to be like forcing ourselves and all hitting burnout and like you see
Yeah.
in your clients, like it's too much of a cost for our health.
It is. And it's like, I think these are like the unconscious ways we give up our way, right? It's so subtle. And it's like very nuanced as well, like because the mind comes up in different ways as well to like give away like that sort of like take in that not self energy and to just be like, oh, I'm gonna bring in like a new story over here. But it's and I think it's about catching ourselves in those
Mm,
moments and it's so nice for us to like be in a space with someone who can see us to that depth. But again, not everybody is like willing to open up to that level as well. So it's doing what's possible that's in your capacity, right? So if you have access to these tools, great. Like, just try to find one thing about yourself that's going to open you up to a deeper part of yourself.
mm,
And just really sit with that for a time, for a while, right? Like, let it contemplate, like integrate and just like let that part of you like speak to you back and then rewire. Like there's no rush. Like we all have enough time. And I think that's another thing, right? Like we feel like, and probably we feel this urgency because the cycles and the changes are happening coming 2027, and we kind of feel that sort of this urgent energy. But it's a good kind of urgency. It's because we're like stripping off all of those layers
mhm.
that do not belong to us, and we are entering those that very innate innocent part of our being. So and which can be gnarly and like very uncomfortable, but there's also a very sweet, sublime feeling to it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for being here. I'll ask you, let's end the session. Like, if, you're talking about like starting small, where can you just do one thing different? Like, someone who's just meeting you for the first time, coming across you, like, what are one or two things you would tell them in terms of like how to get more connected with themselves or start on that journey?
Hmm. Wow. Okay. Yeah. My first line is like, are you sure you can say one thing? Yeah, I'm gonna try to think about that for a second. Um, I think like the first thing that I would tell them is to just really connect to their creativity, right? So even if they don't believe in any of these systems or don't have access to them or don't know it well, um, what did they do before like the age of 7, right? Like what was their life like, and what did they love doing during that time? And just connecting to that part of themselves
Mm,
and like allowing that to be like a ritual that they can do every day, right? So even writing about it, like some people like to journal or like just doing that thing in itself, and just having a bit of an accountability to open up your creative channel, um, and that can help you like drop into your heart. And once you're in your heart and once that feels a bit opened, then you can like do these nervous system practices that's gonna really help you like connect and
mm,
change the rhythms in your body. And I feel once the nervous system feels safe to explore something more deeper, then systems like human design and astrology and medical astrology can give you like so much more validation because you're
mm,
like, oh, I'm feeling safe to be seen in a much more different way. Like, because a lot of people, including some of my friends, they've never had a reading. Like, some of my close friends, they've never had a reading with me because they're so scared to see that, so scared what I'll tell them. I'm like, oh my God, I'm just gonna like tell you about yourself. Like, why are you scared to like, learn about yourself? So that can happen, and it's very true, right? Um, so yeah, and then like from a human design perspective, just even understanding your energy type and your authority, like, and how you engage with that authority, like, which is your strategy. Oh my gosh, that's like icing on the cake, right? Like, it's
Mm,
like the bestest gift that you can ever give yourself. And then embodying your sun, moon, and your rising sign, like, because those kind of like form like the whole cake, like, and you can eat it. So it's just contemplating. Like, I always have to bring it to like some kind of food, or probably Wednesday, who knows? Um, but yeah, it's like slow and steady, opening up your heart, really tending to the nervous system, engaging with your human design, um, and not going into too much of the details, but just like sticking to the basics of like your sun, moon, and rising. Like, that in itself will bring you so much, and taking the time with that as well, and not like rushing into like
mm.
how much money am I going to give to my design, tell me quickly. you know Everyone wants to know how we can prosper, but first we need to learn how we can prosper in our vitality before we can hold
Mm.
like flux of energy.
Then you can have your cake and eat it too.
Yeah. I love that. Now I need to get a piece of cake
I know.
because it's in
I'm like,
the
what cake would I eat if I were eating right now?
Oh gosh.
Uh,
Oh my god.
Thank you so much for being here. I will share your Instagram and your website in the show notes so people can find you and go even deeper and get to know you and love you like I have.
Thank you
um,
so much for
and
having me. Oh my gosh.
yeah, thank you so much.
It's been such an honor, and yeah, like, thank you for recognizing my work and just all the love, and I love the work that you're doing as well. It's just so centered in your heart, and you're so giving and so loving, and it's just yeah, it's an honor for people to receive your medicine as well. So yeah, the feeling is very mutual, and I had an absolute ball chatting with you, and we went to different places, but thank you.
Dogs and cake and everything in between.
Yeah, that's going to be like the topic of this podcast.
Be more like a dog and eat more cake.
Imagine that's like the title, and then like more people are awakened after they listen to this podcast. you know, this is how we get like, like, jump into the matrix, and like we create a new wave, like the dog and cat ladies. Sorry, the dog and cake ladies.
Yes, yes. Oh my God. All right. Thank you guys, everyone, for listening. And we will see you in the next episode.